Hey Lake Point, Pastor Michael here to get you caught up on the 10th week of our series of Free Humanity. In this series, we're looking at Paul's letters to the churches in Galatia. We're looking at how Jesus set us free so that we can live free. There has been a lot of talk about freedom lately. Freedom from a worldly point of view is the desire to do what I want, when I want, in the manner that I want to do it. Yet, if you look historically at those that followed this kind of form of freedom, their stories will tell you that they ended in tragedy. Those that put their desires and will before others turned out to be oligarchs, abusive leaders, cheats, and usurpers. The story of Christianity, for the most part, is a story of people that gave things to others, gave of themselves, extended a hand of love and compassion to those in need, those who were sick and those who were alone. It is this Christianity that has changed our world throughout history, and it is what Paul has been pleading in Galatians for the believers to hold on to. As Luke suggested, we actually need a proper filter in order to see what God sees. The Galatians lived enslaved to the systems of pagan religion, and this was the filter that distorted how they viewed the world. They sought to manipulate the power of the gods for their own benefit, and it ended up drawing them into addictions and enslavement to destructive behaviors. However, Paul wants them to know that Christ should be our filter for everything, that Jesus gives us insight not only into the Father's character, but also into how the Father looks at the world. The Father's preoccupation is that we are all transformed into a new creation, a new humanity, that humanity does not put its trust in weak and empty systems. It trusts the work and the perspective of the Father's Son. That's why Paul writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 16 and 17, that we no longer know anyone from a fallen point of view. Even though we viewed Christ that way in the past, we don't view him this way any longer. If anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Everything from before is gone away. Everything has now become new. Paul, who was Saul the Pharisee, a rule keeper of which he said no one could find fault, he had an inherent hatred for Gentiles and for his own co-nationals who did not toe the line of law keeping. He went around persecuting people, and he viewed Jesus as a failed Messiah. One day, though, Jesus stopped him in his tracks and appeared to him like God appeared to the patriarchs in the Old Testament scriptures. He made it very clear to Saul that when you hurt people, you hurt God. And when you persecute humanity, you are persecuting Jesus. This caused him to get rid of his rigid Pharisaical filter and traded in for the filter of the life of Jesus. Jesus is like a pair of glasses that corrects your eyesight. When we see Jesus for who he is and look out onto the world through his life, his death, his resurrection, and his ascension, we see the world in a whole new way, the way that God sees it, which causes us to live a very different life. And so, what is that different way to live? Well, Luke shared that first, it's by actually picking each other up. In Galatians chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, Paul writes that family members, if anyone is caught off guard by any moral slip-up, you who are spirit people should restore them back to community again in a way of humility, in a spirit of humility. And while you're doing this, be careful so that you too aren't tempted. Help each other with the load you carry, and by doing so, fulfill the law of Christ. You see, there's a law that we should follow: to love others. The law of Christ is the law of picking each other up, helping carry each other's load while paying attention to our own load as well. The law of Christ is to repay evil with good. And what's more, the way we live different is by becoming tireless at doing good. So let us not get tired of doing good, for in time we will benefit if we don't give up. And every chance we get, let's do good to everyone, and especially to those in our faith community, is what Paul writes in Galatians chapter 5, verses 9 and 10. And here's where discipline is needed, because not in following our own structures and traditions and law keeping, but in keeping tireless in doing good. It is a lifestyle that we create over time. Even when the flesh wants to say no, we take heart and we ask the Spirit's help to get up and be good and do good again and again and again. Faith expressing itself through love needs to become our favorite thing, our focus. Acceptance of humanity at both its best and its worst, picking each other up when we fall, learning more about how to do good and live in trust. God's community is a beautiful community when it is loving others. And that should be our aim and our focus continually. And so what does true freedom look like? True freedom is seeing the world like God sees it and expressing our faith through love. Well, friends, consider yourselves caught up. Remember, you've been set free to live free. I'll see you next time.